One of the first websites I built was for a game called StarCraft, which was announced in the late 90s. And I was so looking forward to that game. I built a website about it. I was a teen in Montreal and got to connect with people pretty much all around the world. A Friday night, I was coming back home. It was probably a year after I graduated, and got an email from a team member at Blizzard who mentioned to me, hey, I found you through this one website. You should really consider applying. And at first, like, is this spam? It was not. So I replied back. Yeah, a couple months later, after like, all the finer details were arranged, the visas were cleared. I was able to fly from Montreal to California. So had I not invested a lot of that free time and a lot of my passion in those projects, some were freelance sometimes, but some were really for free, just because I loved what I was doing and I wanted to learn and I wanted to contribute and be part of something. Had I not done that, I don't think I would have received that email, and that door would not have opened itself. I think there's three main aspects of the work of a designer. One is what is it that I need to work on, and try to understand the problem, define it, understand it, do the research necessary either within the company or with your users, and really understand that am I about to build the right thing that will solve the right problem. The main part is really doing that work. You'll use tools similar to Figma or other prototyping tools. Could be tools like Photoshop as well, if your work requires creating more intricate, detailed photos or artwork. A lot of that work will be, taking what you've defined in that first step and really creating all the views, all the permutations of your application, all the navigation, all the components of a design system that contains all the buttons, drop-downs, paragraphs, menus, and all really the components of your application and website need to be defined. So you'll spend a lot of time creating that, creating new views, pages, sections based on those components. You'll iterate with team members to make sure that this is all done in a way that's coherent with the other work that's being done across the team. And then the third part is really kind of looking back, ensuring that what you've built in that middle part, actually is ready for launch and solves the problem. And how do we do that? You look back at that work with the engineers that actually took those designs and built them, implemented them in code, and you look at the actual product now that's built with the designs you've created. You ensure that it behaves as expected, that the smaller details around colors, spacing, typography, how those things may change depending on the size of the screens. You really kind of look at all those small details and ensure that it was built according to the design that was defined. This is where, in that third part, where the quality assurance team as well will be looking at all those things and present bugs back to the designers, to the engineers, or sometimes to other team members as well, depending on their disciplines, and highlight areas where either the product or the implementation are falling through, and then we have to catch those things and resolve them prior to going live. Some of my best memories are announcing new games at BlizzCon, Blizzard's gaming convention in November, and those are extremely large and intricate events being planned by the company, across the company for months, before they are released, and just the emotional release and satisfaction, just to see this game being announced, and the small part you had to play in that announcement by building, say, a website or an app or a new feature. It's just very rewarding, but it's really kind of at the end, and the process before that is extremely long, time consuming, but if done well, you're able to kind of launch and things go well. Sometimes it doesn't. and you learn from it, for the next time. What's awesome about working in web design is I think the opportunity to work on an kind of ever-changing set of problems and opportunities. It's right in the middle between merging kind of creative and technical. And I think my mind has always functioned like this. Always had a great passion for how things look, are presented, function, how they make you feel, and also kind of the building of it. There's always very interesting constraints to work with, both technical, performance, timelines. So I think working within those constraints, I think forces you to be creative, to find ways to go around those limitations or to leapfrog them and really achieve something that will be awesome and will feel great and work great and be good as well for the users and the business in general. So I think it's really that balance between those two things, kind of the creativity and the more rational kind of engineering aspect of it, which is what I went to college for. But really all the creative outlets that I had outside college are kind of a good representation of those two halves. What's challenging about web design is that it always changes. I think the way you develop those websites, the tools that you use, the expectations of the audience that will be using those websites, the competition is also very high. All of that creates, I think, an environment where you cannot kind of just rehash the same thing. You cannot stay idle. And that, I think, that challenge is for anyone wanting to work in a creative field is really kind of the fuel that keeps you going, and that keeps you very interested and makes every project very unique and have its own set of challenges, but also its opportunities attached to that as well. What creates the most stress in the business of building applications? I think there are a number of things. I think we're a team working on a product that has to either launch at a specific date or perform at an expected level of performance. So I think being able to meet specific milestones or commitments or target dates can be a source of stress. There are ways sometimes to move specific dates, but if the date has been announced publicly that something will happen, it's going to be very hard, at least not without suffering some PR black eye. But Blizzard was always a company that was willing and ready to move and delay products until they felt ready, but still being able to meet high quality levels on time. And doing that, time and time again can be difficult. For someone who may want to start, just to experiment, in the field, there are nowadays, I think, just really great platforms that allow you to learn. There are design platforms that are free to use. You don't need to buy anything. You can install it. There's huge resources on YouTube where you can just learn either from the companies that make those platforms, like Webflow or Framer or Figma, to name a few. And then you can put those in application, really yourself, all within an afternoon. It's really, really fast as far as starting from I know nothing to I have built something that can be published online for people to see. It can be something absolutely simple, but just the fact of, okay, I've installed this thing or I've created my account, I have gone through one YouTube video, and those can be very short, a few minutes to maximum an hour. But the best will be more of these, hey, let's build together type tutorials. And then just the fact that you've done this and you've published something that anywhere in the world, someone can see and access and react to, even if really the reality is that, this may have like 0 views and 0 visitors, but just for yourself, having gone through that flow will make the second time around easier. And basically what this does is it builds your muscle to learn in that specific field. And each field, each discipline, in any industry will have very different muscles that you have to learn, that you have to develop on how to learn. But for design and for web, I would say this is probably the best and easiest way. Just installing that software, learning through 1 or 2 tutorials, doing something and publishing it all in an afternoon, and then see how you feel after that. And if it feels great, if you have the feeling that you want to do it again the day after, you'll feel that pull, and then you'll do it again. And at some point someone will have a reaction, or you may feel confident enough to start mentioning that in conversations. And I think just being able to speak in the open about your passions, people will react to that and will mention your name in other conversations as well. So I think starting from a place of passion and knowledge on where you may just create a hypothetical design is really great. In my case, it was gaming. I created a fan site for a game that I loved, and from there it opened doors. That was my place of knowledge and passion. There's an infinite number of those that people may discover. So I think starting there is a great thing, and then connecting with that community for that set of problem will open doors potentially in the direction where you may think that you want to go in the future, and that may change over time. But that's a good first step. Like for web development, there are languages that are very foundational. Any website that is published uses those those web programming languages. You're talking about HTML and JavaScript and CSS. On top of those, since creating websites, more and more, will require like very dynamic type of interactions. You do something, you don't want to wait for the page to reload. There are, frameworks that have been developed to, simplify these types of interactions. You're talking about React, you're talking about Vue. Those are, frameworks to make kind of highly responsive, dynamic applications. It's a lot more advanced. I think there are ways to start learning in the field by just understanding the foundational languages of HTML, JavaScript, CSS. You can actually code all of that by hand as well. It's actually fine for simple websites. In enterprise, you'll find often those very large frameworks that have a higher barrier of entry, but allow you to do more complex things. Those frameworks, though, are going to be worked on mostly by front-end engineers other than designers, but understanding those for designers is fairly important in that it can influence how you design specific things. It opens your eyes as far as what's possible, or what may have, what might have downsides, as well as, delays and load times and response and those sort of things. So I think it's a little bit cyclical. Sometimes, the industry will expand. There will be a lot of new opportunities, and it will still be competitive, but I think there might be fewer people applying for each job. Currently, I think it's a little bit more challenging. It's not unheard of to see hundreds of applicants, for any given position. If you're applying for a very specific company, I think trying to tailor your work to areas of needs for that company. If you're able to, show a certain affinity towards that company's, community or products, like have you played those games yourself? Do you have knowledge of, more than one game in that company's, portfolio? For two equal candidates, skills-wise, if, a candidate also has that affinity, and passion and knowledge of the games, it certainly gives them like an edge. And I think, in my case, I was really involved in the gaming community surrounding Blizzard, when I created fan site and helped other fan sites as well with their designs and organizing specific events and those sort of things. All of that is just because I liked it and I was interested in doing it. So I think this gives you like an edge, I think, as someone who's trying to start. There are internships as well that are possible to do in the summer if you're still in school and have not graduated yet. You can apply for gaming companies or other large companies and get a chance. Again, highly competitive with a lot of applicants, but yeah, being able to show basically that connection you may have to the company's values, products in your past work or experience, I think is key. So I think having a strong portfolio for applying to a design position in any company, I think is critical. I think you need one. It is very difficult for any hiring manager to assess, what you can do as a designer if there are no like tangible, visuals of your work. What makes a good portfolio? I think something that can be, browsed very effectively. Like high performance and really kind of to the point, being able to like really showcase the work very quickly, ideally on one page, no crazy delays or animations or making the experience kind of tedious for the recruiter to actually look at your work. I think, if there are, assets that show kind of the progression of a product, maybe paths that were explored but ultimately not selected, and explaining the rationale as far as why, like the final product, any sort of kind of like full website mockups or links, to live products if they are available online, absolutely ideal. And then anything that conveys your personality as well, as a designer, I think is really helpful. Who you are, why does working in design matter to you? Why does working potentially at the company you're applying for matters as well? All of that is fairly, obvious, but I think it's surprising sometimes how many people apply without, what we think are fairly basic things to consider. I think words of encouragement I would give to someone starting in design would be to not be afraid to try, and not feeling limited by your current level of skill. I think we all start not knowing that much, and the more we learn, the more we realize that there's more to learn. So no one knows everything, and not to wait to feel that you're competent in any field or any specific expertise to actually do something. It's actually better to do something when you feel you know nothing, and to learn from that. The reality is that trying to learn everything before starting is chasing a moving target that can never be reached. So just not hesitating, feeling confident to just do something, getting it out there. And to not despair as well if it's unclear where the path may take you. Just speaking from my personal experience, I actually did not think I would work in that field at all, and finding an area that ideally marries design and some other areas of interest or passion or knowledge for you, I think is great.